Crimea was untouchable. Not anymore. How Ukraine's siege strategy could force Russia off the peninsula without a single battle. For years, the global consensus was clear. Ukraine will never retake Crimea. Not without catastrophic losses. Not without inviting nuclear retaliation. Not without sacrificing its future. When Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, the world's reaction was swift but toothless. Condemnations were issued. Sanctions were imposed. But no force challenged Putin's illegal land grab. And so, with shocking ease and near total bloodlessness, Russia seized one of the most strategically important pieces of land in Eastern Europe. From that moment on, the idea of reclaiming Crimea was branded impossible. Too risky, too fortified, too sacred, at least to Putin and his propaganda machine. Even after Russia invaded Ukraine in full force in February 2022, Crimea remained a red line. While support poured into Kiev from across the West, most leaders whispered the same cautious refrain. Ukraine can win the war, but not in Crimea. But what if that assumption was wrong? What if the peninsula that was stolen without a shot could one day be returned the same way? What if Ukraine didn't need to storm Crimea with tanks and infantry? What if it could use pressure, innovation, and time to force Russia to give it up? Because that's exactly what might be happening right now. Part 1. Why Crimea matters more than anywhere else. To understand Ukraine's plan to reclaim Crimea, we first need to understand why it matters so much for both sides. A symbol, a stronghold, a stolen future. Crimea isn't just a piece of land, it's a strategic fulcrum, a naval fortress, and a cultural powder keg. Geographically, Crimea sits like a dagger pointed into the heart of Ukraine's southern coastline. Whoever holds it controls major trade routes, naval dominance in the Black Sea, and a platform for launching deep military incursions into Ukrainian territory. Militarily, Crimea is the home of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Ports in Sevastopol and Feodosia gave Russia naval reach far beyond its borders. From these harbors, Russia could project power, disrupt global grain trade, and threaten NATO's southeastern flank. Economically, Crimea is a choke point. Before the war, nearly 3/4 of Ukraine's exports passed through the Black Sea. Agriculture, steel, and critical minerals moved through those ports. With Crimea in Russian hands, those arteries are vulnerable. And finally, symbolically, Crimea is deeply intertwined with Russian national identity. Part 2. The myth of military impossibility. So how did Russia seize Crimea with such ease? And why did the world accept that Ukraine could never take it back? 2014, the Little Green Men. The annexation of Crimea began on February 20th, 2014. A date now engraved on a Russian commemorative medal. That day, masked soldiers in unmarked green uniforms began appearing across Crimea. They didn't speak. They didn't engage. They took over buildings, airports, military bases, all without insignia or acknowledgement. These were the infamous Little Green Men, highly trained Russian special forces, posing as spontaneous local militias. Within days, Ukraine's transitional government ordered its troops to stand down. Between 20,000 and 25,000 Ukrainian soldiers withdrew. Not a single shot was fired. By March, Russia held full control of the peninsula, and on March 18th, Putin signed the annexation treaty. The West responded with sanctions, but no military action. For Russia, the success was total. For Ukraine, it was a wound that never closed. Part 3. The impossible path and why it's changing. Since then, Western military strategists have argued one thing: a conventional assault on Crimea is a suicide mission. Why? Because Crimea is geographically protected by choke points, like the Perekop Isthmus, just a few kilometers wide. Any assaulting force would be funneled into narrow corridors. Easy prey for Russian artillery, mines, and drones. Paul Warburg, a geopolitical analyst, summed it up. It's the most difficult piece of Ukrainian territory to retake, militarily and politically. And in a conventional sense, he's absolutely right. But Ukraine isn't fighting a conventional war. And that's exactly why things are starting to shift. Part 4. Ukraine's three-step siege strategy. Rather than storm the gates, Ukraine is laying the groundwork for a siege, a long-term, multi-pronged campaign designed to isolate, weaken, and collapse Russia's grip on Crimea. Step 1. Take back the Black Sea. Ukraine's first objective was to neutralize the Black Sea Fleet. In 2022, this seemed impossible. Russia's fleet boasted dozens of warships, submarines, and 25,000 personnel. Ukraine's navy? Mostly patrol boats and minesweepers. But Ukraine did the unthinkable. It launched a drone-based naval revolution, seaborne kamikaze drones, Neptune missiles, and creative sabotage operations began to chip away at the fleet. By 2024, Ukraine had destroyed or disabled over 26 Russian vessels. That summer, Russia withdrew its Black Sea Fleet from Crimea altogether. Turkey, invoking the Montreux Convention, blocked reinforcements.
The Kerch Bridge, a $4 billion monument to Putin's 2014 conquest, has been attacked multiple times, with drone boats, missile strikes, and sabotage. Each time it's damaged, Russia scrambles to repair it, at enormous cost. The North Crimean Canal, reopened by Russia in 2022, provides 85% of the peninsula's water. But Ukraine has dammed and blocked it before, and now, with more control over surrounding territory and intelligence, it can do so again. Compounding the issue is Russia's own short-sightedness. In 2023, Russian forces destroyed the Kakhovka Dam, damaging Ukraine's energy infrastructure, but also cutting off long-term water supplies to Crimea. A peninsula without water, resupply, or naval support is not a fortress. It's a target waiting to be isolated. Step 3. Let the clock run out. The final step in Ukraine's strategy is the simplest and the hardest. Wait, and let the cost of holding Crimea slowly break Russia. Because while Ukraine bleeds, Russia is hemorrhaging. Its national wealth fund has dropped by nearly $110 billion. Gold reserves have fallen from 2,300 to 1,700 tons. More than 1 million Russian soldiers have been killed, wounded, or captured. Recruitment costs are skyrocketing, with signing bonuses of up to $40,000 and pension promises for families of the dead. And all of this is happening under the weight of international sanctions and a 2.2% unemployment rate, driven not by prosperity, but by conscription. As Ukraine holds fast and international support continues, Russia is running out of time. Part 5. The endgame in Crimea. If Ukraine continues to erode Russia's supply routes, deplete its fleet, and drain its economy, Crimea could collapse without a single Ukrainian battalion entering the peninsula. Just as Russia took it without firing a shot, Ukraine may one day retake it the same way. Crimea's civilians, many of whom are now weary of war and frustrated with shortages, may begin to turn. Its defenders, exhausted and isolated, may start to crack. And the Kremlin, faced with spiraling costs, may be forced to choose between holding Crimea or saving what's left of the Russian economy. Conclusion: the impossible is now inevitable. For years, the world told Ukraine that Crimea was lost, a bargaining chip, a red line, a dream. But Ukraine never believed that. And today, it has a strategy that proves them right: innovation, attrition, and patience. These are the tools Ukraine is using to dismantle Russia's grip on the peninsula. One supply line, one fleet, one bridge at a time. And in the end, when the dust settles, it may not be tanks and troops that retake Crimea. It may be strategy.